So, last time, we talked about this pretty wild idea that human consciousness might be preserved after we die. And that, of course, led to an even bigger question. If our information gets saved, what about the information of every single other living thing?
I mean, it's one thing to think about our own lives, all our complicated memories, our hopes, our sense of who we are. But then you look at something like a bee. It lives this incredibly rich life, navigating a world of color and scent that we can't even imagine. It communicates, it works, it has a purpose. Does all that rich sensory data, just get deleted when it dies? Or does it get recorded too?
You know, we instinctively do this, right? We create this hierarchy, this ladder of importance. We see our experience filled with abstract thought and stories about ourselves as being fundamentally different, more significant than an animal's life of instinct and reaction. It just feels obvious that we're at the top.
But that assumption, that intelligence equals value, that's a totally human bias. We're weighing existence on a scale that we invented. The thing is, the fundamental laws that actually run the universe, they don't use that scale. In fact, one of the most important laws of physics suggests that the universe values something else entirely. And that brings us to the law of information conservation. This is a core idea in physics, and it basically says that information, the data that describes anything, can't just be destroyed. It's like energy. So the pattern of a bee's flight, the electrical signals firing in its tiny brain as it finds a flower, that is all information. And according to this law, when the bee dies, that information has to go somewhere. It can't just vanish into thin air.
So to figure out where that information might go, we have to look at the very moment of death. And there's this fascinating study that gives us a huge biological clue, suggesting that consciousness is way, way more than just a side effect of a brain being turned on.
Okay, so you've got these researchers at the University of Michigan. They're monitoring the brains of rats right as they go into cardiac arrest. Now, you'd expect to see the brain activity just kind of fizzle out, right? The system is shutting down. But what they saw was, well, it was the complete opposite, and it was absolutely stunning. Get this. For a brief moment, right after the heart stopped beating, the gamma wave activity in the rats' brains exploded. It surged to levels 10 times higher than their normal waking state. Not a little spike, 10 times higher. And this is so critical. See, gamma waves are the signature of highly organized, complex, conscious thought. A tenfold spike isn't a dying gasp. It suggests that the brain was having its most coherent, its most intense conscious experience ever. Even in a rat, this wasn't a system crashing. This was a system performing its ultimate function. And that discovery leads to this really powerful shift in how we think about the brain. What if the brain, whether it's ours or a rat's, isn't the factory that makes consciousness? What if it's more like a really sophisticated antenna designed to receive a signal of consciousness that's already out there, all around us? A more complex brain just means a better antenna, one that can tune into a richer, clearer broadcast.
Okay, so if consciousness is some kind of universal signal, you know where we have to go next. We have to dive into the wonderfully weird world of quantum physics, because this is where the role of every single living thing starts to look less passive and much more active in literally shaping reality.
You've probably heard about the observer effect in quantum mechanics. This idea that reality is just a cloud of possibilities until an observer looks at it, forcing it to pick one state. But what really counts as an observer? Does it have to be a person in a lab coat, or could the definition be much, much broader?
Let's just break it down super simple. At the tiniest level, you've got this sea of maybes. Then something interacts with it. Any interaction. Information gets exchanged. And boom, that interaction forces one of those maybes to become the definite, single reality we experience. The key word here, the magic word, isn't thinking, it's interaction.
So if interaction is the only requirement, then the list of who gets to be an observer just exploded. It's not just the scientist, it's the bird seeing the worm. That's an interaction that collapses reality. It's the worm sensing the soil. It's even a single cell reacting to a particle of light. Every one of these is a tiny act of observation that helps create the world.
And this is just a beautiful idea. Every single life form, no matter how simple, becomes like a tiny sensory organ for the universe itself. It suggests reality isn't something that just happens to us. Through every living thing, every plant, every insect, every one of us, the cosmos gets to experience and define itself. We are all active participants.
All right, so we've got a biological spark at the end of life, and we've got this quantum principle that every interaction matters. So how do we tie them together? Well, we can look at a theory from people like Nobel laureate Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff. They propose there's a physical piece of quantum hardware that exists inside all of us.
Meet the microtubule. These amazing little protein structures are basically the scaffolding inside the cells of all complex life. You have them, a bee has them, a tree has them. And the ORC-R theory suggests that these tiny structures aren't just scaffolding. They are biological quantum computers, processing the signal of consciousness itself.
Now, obviously, the power of this hardware varies a lot. In something really simple, like an amoeba, its microtubules might act like a basic calculator, processing simple data. But in a human brain with billions of neurons, they're all interconnected into this massive supercomputer. But here's the crucial point. The basic hardware, the operating system, it's the same.
So, according to this theory, what happens at the moment of death? Well, all that quantum information being processed inside these microtubules isn't just lost. It can't be. That would violate the law of information conservation. Instead, it's released from the body and it just seamlessly reintegrates with the fundamental structure of the universe, of space-time itself. It's like your life's work being saved to a cosmic hard drive.
So just stop and think about what that means. Is getting recorded. It's not just our big accomplishments or our grand ideas. It's the objective information of a cat's peaceful purr, the exact chaotic pattern of a butterfly's flight, the slow, silent, persistent record of a tree's growth over centuries, and yes, the incredibly complex quantum state of your deepest, most private thoughts. Nothing is too small to be logged in this cosmic library.
And this is the final, most critical point to understand. The bee doesn't remember its life in the way we do. It doesn't have a story it tells itself. But that doesn't matter. Its existence, the complete and total information of its life, is recorded objectively by the cosmos. The being may not remember, but the universe doesn't forget.
So this brings this huge cosmic idea all the way back down to you, to this moment. If every interaction, every thought, every sensation is being written into a permanent universal record, what story is your life writing? What indelible piece of information are you contributing to the fabric of reality, forever?